Now look, we came as the leadership of the economic freedom fighters to open a police case of corruption against Jamnanda's Gordhan, because we believe that in trying to influence the Chief Justice to appoint his personal friend, he violated Section 3 of the Prevention and Combating of Corruption Activities Act, which clearly states that no one is permitted to violate their position of authority, particularly if such is going to benefit themselves or their friends. So we then lodged that complaint to say that we think that what Pravin Gordhan did basically amounted to corrupt activity, because corruption is just not about the exchange of money. It's about abuse of position of authority, as is outlined and forbidden in the act that we have opened the case on, the Corruption Act that speaks to that. But also what we did today was to remind the SAPS that there's a pending case that we have opened against Pravin Gordhan at the Brooklyn Police Station on money laundering, on racketeering and corruption of now money movements, which were returned to the Financial Intelligence Center, and the Financial Intelligence Center had come back to us to say that they've referred the case to the DPCI, which is the Hawks that is responsible for that, but there's still not yet one activity that has been followed up in that regard. And our opening of the case here is not just the end of what we're going to do. We are still going to write to the public protector, because we think that in trying to influence the Chief Justice and misrepresenting himself to say that he's going there for official duties, whilst he was going to influence the appointment of his personal friend, he also violated the Executive Ethics Code. But also are going to report him to the Ethics Committee in Parliament. So there's a triple process that we're engaged in: the police case, the public protector, and a parliamentary inquiry, so that it can be held accountable. We've been saying about Pravin Gordhan that is up to no good, and this is going to expose his shenanigans if the police follow it thoroughly. Thank you very much.
Any questions, Comrade?
Yes, DP, Belan Paharia from Newsroom Africa. I know you've touched on exactly what we're here, but the intestines of some of on your statement, it must have been a lengthy one. Since 11 o'clock, what were some of the pointers that you want the police to urgently deal with, to say the least, and what time frames have you asked for?
You know that the way the police process operates is that you go and lodge a statement, you make reference to the relevant legislations that have been violated, and the manner in which the police handle that case post your opening of the case is up to them. So we think in the immediate they're going to appoint an investigations officer who will then call all parties relevant to account. The judge, the Chief Justice must be one of the witnesses to confirm that indeed a bogus meeting was called by Pravin Gordhan with him, to the extent that the Chief Justice had to take a break from the JSC process. A bogus meeting was called so that he can say to him that time as a Minister of Finance that, remember, Chief Justice, that this person you're interviewing is a friend of a Minister of Finance. That is pure abuse of position of authority. And that is what has to be dealt with decisively by our criminal justice systems. There must be no untouchables in South Africa. And the court system must begin to illustrate that Pravin is not above the law. We've been saying on several occasions that this man is acting like he's above the law. So this must come to an end with this case, but also the follow-up of the case that we opened in Brooklyn.
Mr. Shivambu,
yes.
Does this give credence to the allegation by yourself as the EFF and some within the governing party that the judiciary in this country is captured by certain politicians and those who hold the economic power of this country right on public capital?
It is not the judiciary that is captured. They are judges that belong to pockets of politicians. That is a fact. And it's beginning to show up now. Like where a judge goes to an interview, first a question was asked about her proximity to Pravin Gordhan, and she was obfuscating. She was not clear in terms of a response. When the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF asked her a question, She came to confirm that she has been friends with Pravin Gordhan. She even says that actually the only time they've not been seeing each other frequently is during the COVID lockdown period. Meaning that these are people who have been interacting consistently. How do you, as a judge, interact with politicians who from time to time have to be held accountable by the criminal justice system by yourself, which in some instances will have to preside over cases that involve your opponents in the political space, whether it be factional opponents in the ruling party or it's people who are opposed to Pravin Gordhan from different angles. So that relationship also is beginning to confirm what we've been saying, that sections of the judiciary, some judges are captured by the politicians, and all they do, they abuse the judiciary to fulfill political purposes.
Are you not worried of the timing that the Chief Justice spoke about this particular matter? Why did he not speak about it then and resolve it with the minister, or was he just afraid?
Look, the context of the Chief Justice speaking about it is because he was told by Pravin Gordhan that this Judge Pillay is my friend. He didn't confirm that with me. When yesterday she confirmed that indeed they are friends, he then realized that there is something wrong. It means that this relationship these two people have is inappropriate. But also as Chief Justice, he cannot go around lodging complaints. The Chief Justice can't go around lodging complaints against judges underneath him, because he will appear as if he's in pursuit of a political program. He can't be a complainant who later on has to adjudicate on the same case. So that is why I just brought to the attention that actually that now you are confirming that this guy is your friend. He told me that he's your friend. I possibly thought that it's just one of the small talks. But now there is a complaint against you. You must remember that the issue of the friendship of Judge Pillay and Pravin Gordhan is part of the complaints and objections to her appointment as a judge. And then he realizes that she is now confirming in an official platform that they are friends. And then he began to realize that even the bogus meeting that was convened by Pravin Gordhan was not a meeting at all, was about to talk about the appointment into the judiciary, into a senior level in the judiciary. That is what the Chief Justice has done. So there is nothing wrong the Chief Justice did. He was waiting for an opportunity to expose that actually I've had an incident before, and now it is being confirmed by the parties concerned.
Politically, how will the EFF be holding the under fire minister now Pravin Gordhan to account? Will you not be allowing him to speak either in parliamentary committees or in parliament itself? Will you be staging similar scenes that we saw from President Zuma?
Now look, we have said that we've got a three-pronged approach now. One is this police case that we have opened. We are going to write to the public protector, because the public protector is the only one that can enforce the executive ethics code. And then we're going to write to the Parliamentary Ethics Committee and demand that there must be a hearing against him, like there were hearings against members of EFF of Parliament, and some were found guilty, which were appealing. Now here is a clear violation of the Constitution, of a clear violation of the separation of power principle. That is at the political state. We're going to make sure that Parliament follows up in that particular regard. What we'll do when Parliament is physically open, we'll decide when we get there. We'll decide when we get there. Our immediate approach is what we have just outlined we're going to do. But we will see if we will allow people who deliberately violate the Constitution to address Parliament and speak in committees as if nothing happened. We'll decide when the time is right.
The last one from us, from the SABC, the EFF's response on the suspension of the vaccination program of Johnson & Johnson, and which vaccine should the government be procuring, because seemingly those ones from Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca are not working. Which vaccine should we be purchasing as South Africans?
Now look, we made a public call and in a media statement and a press conference of the EFF that after our plenum and the CCT meeting, that let us have all scientifically proven and tested vaccines here in South Africa. Whether they come from China, from Russia, or from India, from Europe, from Nigeria, from any other parts of the world, from Cuba. That is what we had said. that as human beings here, as the people of South Africa, we must have a choice of which vaccine do we want to be vaccinated with. And at the central point of our vaccine approach is that it must be scientifically tested and proven to be effective. We must not be human trials for vaccines here in South Africa. Let us only administer what has been tested and has been proven to work in terms of what happened. There are no many faults that are associated with the vaccines that come from Sinopharm in China. There are no many faults that come with vaccines that come from the Sputnik V vaccine from Russia. But a perception is created in South Africa that we should only get vaccines from America and from Europe. And that is unacceptable because these vaccines from there have dismally failed thus far. But a bigger problem which South Africa is having is that the current government does not have a plan, does not have the intention, does not have the money to bring vaccines to vaccinate 60% of the population before the end of the year. We can say it now that the herd immunity will not be achieved before the end of 2021. It will be a miracle even if they achieve it by the end of 2022, because the budget that have been allocated for vaccination is far much lesser than what is required to purchase all these vaccines, and there is no contingency liability approach that is going to be dealt with in terms of how do we deal with the rollout of vaccines. In many instances, they just purchase vaccines, they forget to purchase the syringes that are supposed to administer that vaccine, and that is unacceptable. We've got directionlessness that is defining the Department of Health and the presidency, which in many instances, if you go and read the details of the contracts which they are reaching with Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer, you will realize that South Africa is being sold to the highest bidders, mostly European, Western bidders, at the expense of our sovereignty in a manner that is happening. So we think and still insist that only scientifically tested and proven vaccines must be administered on our people. And those vaccines must come from all parts of the world. They must come from the West, from the East, from the North, must come from here in the African continent, as long as we can prove that these vaccines are properly functioning.
Okay. That's one from me. Tomorrow, I understand the IEC has called on a meeting to discuss the local government elections. Are you attending that meeting as the party? And secondly, as much as we do know that you've been saying that they must be postponed, is there any way that you are going to ensure that Parliament sits and discuss this issue, because it's a constitutional matter as well, to ensure that it is amended in order for elections to go all the way back to 2024?
The meeting which the Independent Electoral Commission is convening tomorrow is an initiation of the EFF, was initiated by the EFF. We engaged with all political parties and said, let us approach collectively the IEC to discuss the feasibility of holding the local government elections in 2021. So that is what we're going to be discussing tomorrow, to check the practicality of holding elections in 2021 without risking the lives of the people, because of course we want to have change of government. We want recurrent elections to happen, but under current conditions we do not have space to speak to our people, to convince our people, to give them an alternate vision to what is happening now. And then we say that without a democratic space being open, we cannot force and go ahead with elections in the manner that it is. So that is the proposal that will be tabling to the IEC tomorrow, to say what options do we have out of the 2021 elections. Do we postpone them to next year? Do we postpone them to 2024, where we synchronize the national elections? What are the options that must come out of that process? So that is the meeting which was convened by the IEC on the advice of the economic freedom fighters. And we actually said that the Department of Health and the people who are dealing with these projections of how the virus is going to go about must come to make a presentation as well. But also we said that Department of Health must speak about this failed vaccination program. That do we open up the country, have rallies, have community meetings, and have a cumbersome voting process when we still have a crisis of corona. Let us look into postponing the election so that there is a fair, democratic, transparent and safe environment to conduct elections that are going to make sure that we establish local government for the people of South Africa. Otherwise, we're going to defeat them in all the elections that are coming.
Thank you very much, colleague.